You are listening to the Jan Price Show, all about movies. And today, my guest is Oscar nominated editor Kevin Tent. And Kevin was on my show. We were just discussing this about 6 years ago. So it's welcome back to the show, Kevin.
Thanks, Jan. Thanks for having me again. It's my
Oh,
pleasure.
oh, my pleasure to have you back. Our interview that we did 6 years ago was wonderful. So I always thought I'd love to have you back on the show with another project in the future. So I'm happy to be talking about this project, The Holdovers. Recently at the Santa Barbara International Film Festival, Andrew Payne, Alexander Payne,
Alexander, yeah.
that's right, Alexander Payne, and screenwriter David Hemmingson and actor Dominic Sessa all came, and they had a special screening at the Riviera Theater, which is in Santa Barbara. It's a wonderful theater.
Beautiful place.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, it is. That the film festival purchased a number of years ago and raised the funds to renovate it. And it's just a little treasure here
It
in
is.
Santa Barbara.
It
And
is.
so he did this special screening, sold out screening to see this film on a Sunday morning at 10:30 in the morning.
Wow,
And
that's impressive.
very impressive. And the interview was amazing, but people loved this movie. And
Wow.
unfortunately, when I went to see it, I know I always have tissues, but for some reason I didn't have tissues. And I was crying throughout this film. I was like, darn, of all times not to have any tissue. So I absolutely love this film. I really do. And I actually said to Christine, the publicist from Focus Features, I believe, right? That's
Yeah. Yes, focus. Yeah.
I said this, I think this becomes a Christmas classic that people need to watch every single year because
That
there's,
would be, if that happens, that would be amazing. That
yeah,
would be great.
it has
That'd be
that
great.
feel. It has that feel of It's a Wonderful Life kind of feel to it. So
Right.
please tell Alexander that because
Oh,
I
he would love that. He loves Frank Capra and he loves that movie and other Frank movies. He's a huge fan of his. So
Me
uh,
too. Me too. I'm a huge fan of Frank Capra. So let's talk about you and your career. I mean, we've talked about your career in our last interview, but I want to talk more about this film itself because it is so different from the type of film that Alexander has done in the past, in the way that this is set in 1970 and he makes it feel like a film that was filmed in 1970. So let's talk a little bit about that and how, for you as an editor, what you had to do also to make this have this incredible, it really does have this old style feel to it.
feel. Yeah. Well, there's a couple things we did some, editorial tricks and kind of things to visually make it feel that way. And, some of the stylistic choices we made with dissolves and that kind of thing did that. But it's funny you mentioned that because we had a Q&A with Alexander. I was with him, a few weeks ago on one and people were saying, oh, it was like a 70s film. And then we said, he always kind of makes 70s films. Even his early films are really kind of like 70s films. And we approached it the same way, besides doing the editorial tricks I just mentioned. We approached it the same way we have approached all his movies, which is we're very performance driven and in our editorial choices. And so yeah, it's more unique and more 70s than maybe his other films, but his other films have also been very kind of 70s like About Schmidt, let's say, or Citizen Ruth, or even Sideways, I would say.
Yeah, I just had the a group here just that I belong to. They were bringing in the two owners of the hitching post.
Oh yeah.
They were supposed to come and talk to us about Sideways, and they unfortunately couldn't come in person, but we did a Zoom meeting with them, and they went on and on and on. And then we saw Sideways again, which I had not seen in quite a while. But now that I live in the close by the area of
Right.
Sideways was filmed, it was fascinating to hear what they had to say and how that all came about. It was really, really wonderful discussion about that film, which is coming up to its 20th anniversary, I think.
Which is so crazy. That just, it's like one of those things you just can't believe that you know, it's hard to believe. It's really hard to believe it's 20 years.
It is, and I heard that there's going to be a probably Alexander. I think I read somewhere that he said there's probably going to be a lot more interviews and retrospectives about this film since it's coming up to 20 years. Have you heard
Yeah.
anything about that?
No, I haven't heard about that, but we are doing something in a couple of weeks. We're going to do a Q&A. Alexander and I are about, oh, sorry, 1 second. A Q&A with about Sideways. It's a virtual thing that we're doing and about the editing of it and stuff. So that'll be fun. But yeah, all the winemakers were so kind to us at the 10-year reunion. So I'm hoping they're going to be kind to us again on the 20th, because they threw a great party. We had really great food, and it was like fundraisers for some other things that were going on in your area, Santa Barbara and stuff. But yeah, so I'm hoping that happens again, because it was really fun. We had a weekend of drinking wine and eating great food. It was really fun.
What could be better than that?
Nothing could be better. And
Nothing.
people going, your movie was great. You got to love that. The whole thing was terrific.
Yeah,
So hopefully
it is. It's a classic. It's another classic. It's one that people talk about all the time, and it's
Yeah.
it comes up in conversations a lot. It's for some people, for their top, some of their favorite movies ever are
Yeah.
Sideways, for sure. But let's get back to the Holdovers, because
Yeah.
what was different? I mean, yes, maybe he approaches his movies in the 70s, way of how he makes his movies, but this one really has the feel of 1970,
Yeah.
the whole the set design, the cinematography, all of it just had this wonderful feel. And by the way, congratulations, because the Indie Spirit Awards just nominated Dominic Sessa as Best Supporting Actor, the screenwriter David Hemming's
Right.
son. Now I'm going to mess up this name. Well, also Divine Joy Randolph,
Oh,
Best
great.
Supporting Actress, but the cinematographer, and I don't want to mess up the Eigelberg was also nominated for Independent Spirit Award. But right before I went on to interview you, the National Board of Review just gave Paul Giamatti the Best Actor.
Nice.
Yes. And
that's wonderful. I didn't know that.
And
that's
Divine Joy Randolph got Best Supporting Actress.
Great.
So
well, they're all terrific in the movie. I mean, they're so good. That's great news. I hadn't heard that. So
yeah, well, good. I'm presenting the news to you right off the presses.
That's so exciting. That's great. Well,
It
that
is.
Sounds fantastic.
Yeah, and I think this movie is going to be headed for more awards as we go into the awards season here.
From your lips to God's ears, we'll see what happens. But yeah, you never know. You never know. But it's been wonderful how it's been received. Do you hope when you're working on it? I felt pretty good about it. Even watching dailies, I was like, we got some solid scenes here. And Paul, I knew right off the bat, was just nailing it. And but you just never know. You keep on working, and you never know how it's going to be received, really. So, but I was confident, and sometimes I'm not confident. So, but I was confident on this one early on.
And what made you confident about this one early on, Kevin?
Well, you mentioned the cinematography. I knew right away it looked beautiful, and this, the locations they got were amazing, and the production design is it's very rich and warm, and feels like the East Coast, and feels a little old, I guess, too, just the locations. And I knew right away that the performances were good. And I knew we were going to shape them more in the editing room, but we were given outstanding raw materials to work with from the actors and from Alexander. And so, it was, I just felt very good about it.
Yeah. Well, I'm from the East Coast, and I was there in the 1970s. So
right.
I can totally relate to it too. How does the audience get involved with the characters through editing? You mentioned the acting. So how does that, and because I think we might have just talked about this, but I read about this a long time ago, that, the acting really is created in the editing room. Now, do you feel that way, that you are being the master of someone's performance?
I wouldn't say that. Sometimes, yes, sometimes you can really help a performance by, judiciously choosing what is seen and what is not seen, and that kind of thing. But again, I just said it, that we got so many gems from our cast, even from the set. I mean, they were really Paul. I can't say enough wonderful things about him because he was just nailed it. Like, and he has some real tongue twisters to say, and he says them fast in the movie. But he rarely had to go back and pick one up, and or he'd want to go back and get another version of something. He rarely went back on his for him to get something new. And this just goes to show you how locked in he was with the character and stuff. So yeah, so
It was
yeah.
perfect for him. I mean, it's a perfect, well, he's always wonderful in whatever he does, but this
Yeah.
is a perfect role. I have to tell you, last night I was standing in line again to go to the Riviera Theater for a special screening of the film with Ava DuVernay's film.
Oh yeah, right.
Oh my God, amazing film.
I can't
But
wait to
yeah, I was standing in line talking to these women, and we started talking about the Holdovers, and they were quoting lines for the film to me. They loved it.
really.
Yes.
See, that's a great sign. That's wonderful. Okay, we love that.
Well, I was like shocked. I was like, they were quoting me different lines. And I thought, wow, they just loved the film. So that was
Oh,
nice
great.
too, to stand in line. I said, I'm going to be interviewing the editor, Kevin,
And she said,
tomorrow.
"Who's that? What do they do?"
Right. What does an editor do? Right.
Yeah,
It
that's
only
usually
makes the film that it is.
well.
So with you, this, I want to talk a little bit about how do you make it feel totally real in the editing room?
I would say what we do and what Alexander and I think we strive for, everything really becomes believable with the performances. Like, I think that's really the audience buys in when they believe a character and they empathize and sympathize and sort of, I don't want to say become the character, but tap into what the character is doing. And we do everything we can to make sure that everything is convincing, and that uh, there's nothing that takes them out of being uh, united with the character. I don't know if that made any sense, but that's what we kind of strive to do, and it's really our taste of what we think is believable or not believable, and we make adjustments always to see if we can fine tune a performance so that an audience is very engaged and they don't lose their engagement.
Right.
So
Right.
hopefully it made that, Jan. I hope that made some sense. I just really hope so. So
Oh, well, I think it did. I think
okay,
it does. It does, Kevin.
it's really hard to describe what editing, how editing works, because you do so many small things all the time that hopefully add up to, you know, making a movie believable and convincing and engaging.
And I think we talked last time a little bit about your process with Alexander, and you've worked with other many wonderful directors. So,
Yes.
besides Alexander, but is it the same process that you kind of start the edit? Tell me a little bit about that process. Tell our audience.
Yeah. So
how
we
your
work
process.
differently than traditionally, but it's a way we've sort of evolved over the years. And so he shoots during the day and I get the dailies and I start cutting right away. And he doesn't watch dailies anymore. And the old days, not even that long ago, directors would watch their dailies and everyone would watch their dailies from the day before that they shot. And give notes and stuff like that. Well, he doesn't do that anymore. He doesn't watch things. He wants to have a little distance from when he shot things and when he comes back to the cutting room and sees it fresh, 2-3 months later. So I go through and I make a cut of the movie as they're shooting, and then shortly, a week or so after they're done shooting, I'll have a very rough cut of the movie. It's usually, not very pretty. And then he'll come back to the cutting room, and we used to watch my assembly and then we'd start working off of it, but he found that too painful. So now we basically start our own editor's cut / director's cut together. We go through dailies, we start picking our takes and putting it roughly together. So it's not as bad as an editor's cut and it's not as good as a director's cut. It's kind of an in-between first stage. And then we go back and start honing it from there and going through and fine-tuning the movie. And we just make a pass at the movie, go back, make another pass at the movie. and keep doing that. And then we start screening it for people. When he starts feeling confident, you know, a lot of times he'll show just a couple of reels just to see how it feels to people. And then, you know, after a few weeks, a few passes of the movie, then we'll start showing it, the whole thing to friends and family and that kind of thing, and get feedback.
So how long was the editing process for the Holdovers?
They started shooting at the end of January of 2022, and we were pretty much done. We, you know, mixing and all the fine tuning and stuff like that, that takes like, and it's slow and there's visual effects and everything like that. But we were basically done cutting, I would say, you know, in October, no, early November of last year. So I don't know, about, I guess, 9, 10 months, something like that. And then the finishing takes another month or so to do.
Was there a
So,
reason you decided to waited so long to release the film?
well, that was Focus's call. I during the summer when we were cutting, I was like, we should try to get it out this year. I thought we could, but Alexander wasn't in any rush to do it, and I think he was just, you know, he just wasn't in what didn't want to rush it.
Right.
So we didn't push the cut to finish the cut earlier or anything like that. But when Focus bought it at Toronto last year, they already had a couple of movies on their slate that they were already in the works promoting, and they totally know what they're doing so
Mhm.
much better than I do,
Yeah.
because I was like, yeah, it should come out, you know, let's get it out this year. I guess maybe for my own selfish reasons, because I wanted people to see it, but they were correct, and they were like, no, we'll sit on it. We'll bring it out next year, and as they said, they'll have enough runway to really launch it properly. And they
Right.
were so right. I think they've done a great job on it, on releasing it so far.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I agree. I agree. Well, they're a great company. I do a
they
lot.
are, and they're really talented, and
Yeah.
their people are wonderful. So yeah, I think they're doing a fantastic job.
Yeah. I've highlighted lots of their movies on this show through the years. So yeah, they've
Right.
always done a good job. Let's talk about the music.
Yeah.
How do you do the musical transitions, and how does that enhance the performances, but also the film? And how does that work for you? Who chooses the music? Of course, you have a composer and all of that, but
Right.
how does that all work together?
Well, when I'm cutting, at the very beginning, when I'm cutting scenes and stuff, I sometimes will have music in my head that I'll go, oh, this would work in this scene, or this would work in this scene. This movie, I couldn't hear it in my own head. I was like, I don't know what the music is right here. So a lot of times, except for like rock songs and, you know, source cues that would go in scenes, I was not really sure what to use. Our longtime assistant editor, Mindy Elliott, who got an associate editor's credit on the movie, and deservedly so,
Mhm.
she imported some of the Swingle Singers music, which is the choir Christmas music.
Uh-huh.
She imported it, and either she gave it to me or she cut it into a scene. And that was the first thing we're like, oh, Christmas music. Of course, it's a Christmas music movie. Um, that seems appropriate, you know? So we started winding up using more and more of that as one bit of the music that we had in the movie.
Mhm.
Um, and it became ironic at times, funny at times, moving at times. It was kind of terrific. It was wonderful to work with. Um, and then the other element we had was the other source cues, which is the 60s. That's a whole long story, and everyone kind of probably knows about that. It gets really expensive, and then you fall in love with one, and then you can't keep it. The score was something that came later, and we also have an amazing music editor we work with named Richard Ford. And Mark Orton, the composer, we had worked with him before in Nebraska. And Richard got us, you know, cut in temp cues that he thought might work well in scenes and stuff like that, and to see if it was the right sound. And Alexander took a long time to really decide who would be the right composer for it, but eventually it landed on Mark Orton's lap. And Richard had done a lot of prep work with temp tracks and stuff like that. And then that became our third leg of the tripod of music, I guess you could say. We had the Christmas music, the source cues, and then Mark Orton's score. So, and you know, the score works beautifully. I think it's kind of
Yeah.
reserved and quiet, and doesn't overwhelm the emotion, just kind of gets in there and helps out. And beautiful job, I think.
Yeah, it really it is. It's very much sometimes the music can overpower a
Yeah.
film or there isn't enough sometimes too. So this was, really was uh beautifully done and beautifully integrated in this film when you're watching it for sure. When you approach a new film or a new project, uh do you approach each one differently, or do you have a set way of how you're going to approach a certain film?
Um, no, I think I just, I think I'm pretty probably much like any other editor. The footage comes in and you just look at it and you go, well, I guess I should do this. And you start cutting and you don't really think about it. I don't think, it's not like you read the script and go, well, maybe no, maybe that's not true. Maybe you read the script and go, oh, okay, these are going to be action scenes. So you're going to watch it with that in mind or something like that. But most of the time, I think the footage comes in and it kind of dictates how you're gonna approach it and how you're gonna cut it in a lot of ways. So
Mhm,
it's not
mhm.
it's not like you're dictating it. It's kind of telling you, what you should do. Or there's maybe a combo of both those things happening.
And how do projects come to you? Do you get to read the scripts and decide whether this is a film you want to edit, or how does that
Well,
process work?
I have an agent who's always kind of out there, looking for the next thing. So yeah, people will say, hey, sometimes it's people I've worked with before. I've got this project coming up. You know, would you be interested? And read the script, and if it seems like a good fit, um, you know, join forces on it. So, but it's always you never know where a project's going to come from, and they pop up, from odd places sometimes, and you never know what you're gonna. And sometimes, if you're doing like the recut or something like that, you'll they'll just land in your lap suddenly, and you take a look at them, and if you think you can work on it and make it better or help out on it, then you go for it.
And you've been doing this a long time,
I
so
have. It's
yeah.
so funny. I feel like I'm becoming one of those old timers. I guess I am.
You're not that old, Kevin, but
I know.
but
Thank you.
but
Thanks.
you have had quite the illustrious career. You really, really have. I mean, you started with Alexander Payne's Sundance hit Citizen Ruth, starring Laura Dern, and then Election with Reese Witherspoon, and then you got nominations for many of these films, and Ace, the Ace nomination, and about Schmidt and Sideways, and it goes on, and then you also and we have Downsizing, and then and now this one. But you've also been you were elected as the president of the America Cinema Editors, not once but twice, and those are wonderful uh tributes to you and your talent
Oh,
and what you do,
well,
because that you don't get that very easily, there's a
thank
lot of,
you.
yeah.
Well, yes, I thought the editors were crazy for electing me, but so far I haven't been impeached yet, which is I'm very grateful for that. So that's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. But jury's still out. I have a year left on my second term, so we'll see
Well,
what
you
happens.
never know. You never
Yeah.
know. You never know. What's the thing that you love most about editing?
Oh, I think that's a good question. Well, I don't know. I'm sure this happens to other editors, but when you get into the zone and you're just cutting and you're just and your brain's just going fast, and and time will fly by and you're like, oh my God, that was an hour, and you didn't even notice it. That's great. And I guess really one of the best things though is what's happening with the holdovers right now, where you work hard on a project and it gets out there and people are digging it and they are responding how you kind of hope they would. And so many times the exact opposite happens. You work so hard on something and you're like, this is so great. And then no one either sees it or it doesn't land the same way you hoped. And so one of the great things I think is when you work on something that you really believe in and you worked hard on it and it gets well received. I
Yeah.
think that's probably the best thing.
Well, you've got a great film here with the holdovers. It is, I know, right? It's out right now in theaters only, which I think is the way movies should be seen, as I have said,
Ditto. Right.
throughout this show for many years. So I wish you much success. Maybe we'll be hearing your name for the nominations for Best Editor this year.
Well, you never know. I don't know. There's a lot of great editing out there, especially this year.
But
So
you're one of them, Kevin.
wow. Thanks, Jen. Thank
Thank you
you.
for being on the show again. I really
My pleasure.
coming back on, and I look forward to having you back on with your next project.
I'll be there.
All right. Take
All
care.
right. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.